What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at a fast move damage team for the Open Great League. And the reason we're taking a look at a team like this in general, because I don't usually vouch for teams like this, is because it's Go Battle Day week, which means we have 20 sets to complete and you want to get these battles done fast. And can you get these battles done fast with a team that just hits really hard with their fast moves while also applying decent charge move pressure? You sure can. So the team we're going to take a look at, although it doesn't look great on paper, is Ninetales, Annihilate, and Marowak. Now you might look at this team right away and see a glaring weakness to one specific Pokemon. I won't mention what that Pokemon is yet, but you will see it in this video. So without further ado, let's hop right into some battles. Alright, Alolan Ninetales into Malamar. We are on Charm here, so this is a great matchup for the Alolan Ninetales. My opponent checks the fast move, and then they get into their Superior. Unfortunately, because I do not have a great answer for Superior, I'm just going to have to stay in this matchup. And my opponent is actually on Leaf Tornado, which means, and they get their debuff. I think it's a 50-50 chance, and they do get it, but we are able to grab a shield back, and now I can just come in with my Annihilate. I can survive any one move here. Obviously, the Shadow Annihilate is a little more glassy, but we actually still live that, and we get the full counter down while exiting with a close combat loaded, which is massive, because even a Malamar doesn't want to take a neutral close combat from a Shadow Annihilate, but they do, and that does massive damage. I come in with my Marowak expecting them to instant swap. They do into a Drapion, and so we are able to take that win. Another decent lead, but because we're on Charm, it's actually made a little bit worse, and my opponent actually safe switches into a Credilli. So I'm going to throw 4 Charms and then catch a Rock Tomb on my Annihilate. Obviously, Rock Tomb is resisted on the fighting type of Annihilate, and because I snuck a counter through, that actually means I can overfarm slightly and play to a CMP tie with the Rage Fist. Rage Fist is able to pick up the knockout, and we do maintain alignment, which is nice. Are they going to come back in with the Marowak? They are, and this Marowak is going to have to take a Rage Fist. This is only neutral damage, but it is, actually, it's not boosted anymore because we boosted it back up from a debuff. So, we do overfarm. We play to a CMP tie when they make it to back-to-back Bone Clubs, which means we can now grab the final shield from my opponent, I believe. Or no, the first shield from my opponent. One Bone Club does connect. In comes a Bastiodon, and that is game over because we have a Mud Slapper in the back. So we are able to take that win. Another Malamar lead. This is fantastic. I saw a lot of Malamars, which is why I decided to run this team. Oh, and here comes Credilli. So same exact thing. I'm going to catch the Rock Tomb onto my Annihilate. This time I don't sneak a fast move, which is not how it should work because it should take them one turn to switch. However, we can still throw the Rage Fist on the CMP tie, and it actually doesn't pick up the knockout because we don't get that extra counter through, which is a bit unfortunate, but I decided to call a bait and my opponent went for another Rock Tomb, which is a huge mistake. That also means it limits the farm on the Malamar, which is good because we can just come back in with the Alolan Ninetales and get off these charms, and they have an Azumarill in the back. And now, suddenly, this game isn't looking as straightforward as it was. We do have neutral charms and neutral Psyshocks, but we really wanted our Ninetales on that Malamar, and it looks like that's not going to be the case because we're going to have to align our Marowak there. However, I can overfarm here, play to a CMP tie with the Azumarill's next charge move, so that way, if they want to get off this charge move, they will have to shield, and they do. So at this point, I will just let this go. I'm fine with taking 2 bubbles as long as I can save this last shield. It is just the Ice Beam, which is resisted. In comes the Marowak. My opponent is going to need to get to 2 charge moves here because Marowak has some decent bulk to it, so I will let the first one go. They do full send the superpower, but here comes a second charge move, and I can just click the shield, and this game is over. I have 2 options here. I'm at the back-to-back. I could just Mud Slap farm down, but I may as well just click the 2 moves. They've only got 1 shield, and I've got 2 moves, and they're at 1 HP, so they shield 1. Here comes a second Bone Club, and from this range, Bone Club will be enough to KO the bulky Azumarill, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, Ninetales picks up a pretty good lead again into a Dugong where Ice Shard is resisted and our charms are neutral. So if they want to go for any damage, they have to go for Drill Run here. Drill Run obviously will do some decent damage, but they actually bait with an Icy Wind, which in my mind is a pretty poor decision because that still doesn't put me in drill run range. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overfarm. I'm going to play to a potential CMP tie with their next charge move, but my opponent does not fall for it. They do overfarm. A drill run probably still doesn't KO from this range, so I just let it go. It leaves me at 1 HP, not quite able to make it to the side shock, but that is okay because that allows me to get an energy lead on my Marowak. Now, what do they have in the back? They have an Altaria, so this game has suddenly gotten a lot trickier because I have a fighter and a mud slapper against a bulky dragon flyer. Fortunately, we do grab that final shield with a rock slide. However, I switch into my Annihilate and I'm met with a charge bug, so this game is going all types of wrong. They have the alignment that they need. We have two Pokemon that cannot deal with the Pokemon in the back, but I see a win con, and that win con is picking up the knockout or getting this charge bug low, and then just getting to a charge move here on my Marowak. I don't believe one super effective rock slide will be enough because Altaria is very bulky. However, I believe a rock slide plus a bone club will be enough. So I'm going to farm up, I go for the rock slide. Let's see how much damage this does. Do I need a second rock slide or is another bone club just enough? And it's just a bone club range, so we're gonna just go for the bone club. We wouldn't even make it to another rock slide, and a bone club from that range does pick up the knockout on the Altaria, and somehow you just watched an Annihilate on a charge bug and a Marowak on an Altaria win that end game. Picking up a bit of a tricky lead in Blastoise. We come in with our Annihilate. I'm gonna full send in close combat on the opponent, on the chance that my opponent wants to call a Rage Fist bait, but they don't. They are the Shadow, they're more likely to bait. However, that does allow them for less farm. That does mean they're going to get to a super power against my Ninetales though, which isn't great, but they are in what looks like 2 charm range, which is nice, so I can pick up the knockout here. Superpower does some pretty massive damage, and if they come right back in with their Blastoise, which they don't, which is good because I was still switch locked, I can just go for a charge move here. No, I'm going to overfarm, hoping my opponent doesn't throw, and now I'm just going to go for a Psyshock, and I'm just going to grab that final shield because Marowak with a 2 shield advantage beats pretty much everything in the game other than like jump pluff. So we're just going to double shield these Hydros. We're going to come out loaded with energy. These rollouts are doing absolutely no damage to the Marowak. So it just kind of depends on what is in the back. We do get the full farm down. What is that back Pokemon? It is a Furret. So Furret does have super effective Trailblaze here, and these Sucker Punches will start adding up. However, they've given us such an energy lead that I can actually make it to 2 Bone Clubs before they even make it to a Trailblaze, and that's with overfarming, so that's nice. Bone Club connects. Can we survive a Trailblaze here? Marowak IVs check. We can. Yeah, probably any Marowak would survive that, to be honest, but we are able to take that win, and that is a 5-0. So going into the next match, can you figure out the Pokemon that we're triple weak to? Yeah, we have 0 answers for Talonflame. So what I do is I safe switch into my Annihilate. I mean, this game is basically a top left from the beginning, but we may as well play it out. We actually grab a shield from my opponent, which is pretty interesting because that means we can potentially grab a second shield here if my opponent doesn't throw, but they do end up throwing. I'm actually going to commit both shields as well because I want to grab a shield back. My opponent ends up coming in with Superior, and my attack's boosted here, so I'm going to full send a close combat. That connects. In comes the Ninetales. We charm them down before they even get to a charge move, and now that puts my opponent in like mud slap range because they're forced to throw here. They should be completely reset on the 3 cycle here, so I can probably come in with Marowak, get a full farm down, and then it just depends on what is in the back. And I don't know if you're familiar with, I guess they were still on the 2 cycle, but what is paired with a Talonflame and a Superior at this elo? It's a Morpeko, and that's why team reading is so important, because I knew it was going to be the Morpeko in the back. I knew they had no fast move pressure, so I can actually make it to back-to-back Bone Clubs. We grab a shield with the first and throwing Mud Slaps in between for good timing. That picks up the knockout, and yes, an Alolan Ninetales Annihilate Marowak team just beat a Talonflame. Picking up a great lead in the next match, charm Alolan Ninetales into a Malamar. They safe switch into a Diggersby, and alarm bells are firing off right away that I need to maintain switch. And that's because a very common old team is Malamar, Diggersby, Toxapex. That line was absolutely everywhere. maybe was it last season or just a couple seasons ago. So what I do is I'm in a full send close combat, making sure I can maintain switch. That also limits the farm that the Malamar gets. However, I don't get to another charge move, but that's okay, because even if they connect with a superpower here, that's just going to put me around the same health as they're going to be after that charm goes through and they lower their defense. So in comes the superpower. I'm instantly queuing up the switch, and I was wrong. It's not the Toxapex in the back, and it's in a zoom roll. So suddenly this game is not looking good. I am able to get to a Bone Club and outpace my opponent to the Ice Beam. However, this is still not looking good for us because these bubbles are adding up so much, and even though we have a pacing advantage in this matchup, I'm still gonna have to make like a crazy play in order to take the win. So here comes a second Bone Club. Do I want to shield this up, or do I commit to the Ninetales? I say I do, because I need my Ninetales. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up to back-to-back. My opponent actually makes a catch onto their Malamar. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my Ninetales. I'm going to force them to throw some energy, and now I have a Bone Club loaded for the Azumarill in the back. We obviously wouldn't survive that bubble, so this needs to be enough to KO the Azumarill. And it does. So somehow, once again, we are able to pick up a win with poor alignment. Picking up an okay lead in the next match, but my opponent actually stays in to check the fast move. So suddenly this has gotten worse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up 4 charms, bank that energy, and catch a Rock Tomb onto my Annihilate. Of course, my opponent will have a response to an Annihilate because Credilli is weak to fighting. But we do lure out a Jellicent, and we can actually chip Jellicent with super effective Rage Fist, and we would make it to a second one. So my opponent is actually forced to throw energy as well. This will, of course, just be the Surf to pick up the knockout, but I can just come back with my Ninetales. I will get 1 turn lag, which is a bit unfortunate, but Surf will connect, and now all I have to do here is go for a Psyshock on the CMP tie to pick up the knockout of the Jellicent. And now, while I would have 1 residual energy, it's not the end of the world. And they actually have a Marowak in the back. And by the fact that I was able to throw a charm and then switch, means that my opponent also got 1 turn lag. So we're basically back to even. Here comes a Bone Club from my Marowak. We shielded one of theirs up, but we do have a shield advantage in this matchup, so I will commit my second shield. And now it's just about when they go for a catch. I actually don't have a shield advantage, I'm lying. But we are able to throw the Bone Club on this CMP tie with probably the Grass Knot here. They're just going to go for the knockout. There's no point in going for a Rock Tomb. And Grass Knot does pick up the KO, but we put them in farm down range for Charm, and their Energy Dry, I believe, on their Marowak. So we're just going to go for the full Charm down, but unfortunately it's actually a tie. But with a shield deficit there, we will take that. Picking up a pretty good lead in the next match, Ninetales into a Dugong. My opponent safe switches into an Azumarill, and I do not have a good response for Azumarill. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go for a Psyshock, go for some chip. My opponent actually commits a shield, maybe recognizing that I am weak to Azumarill in the back because I am staying in this matchup, which would otherwise be a pretty negative matchup. I will have to actually commit both shields in this matchup in order to maintain switch, but I'm okay with that because I will be able to fully charm down and then come out loaded with energy. So then it's just about what is in the back. It is a Toxapex. I shouldn't have thrown this move. I should have banked this energy and then just instantly come into my Annihilate, because Annihilate has a decent matchup here already. But we do chip with the Psyshock. That is some sizable damage, and now we're able to make it to a Rage Fist. And Rage Fist is neutral damage. It'll do some solid chip, and it is a CMP tie with a Brine. Brine is a pretty crap move, so we know we can survive this. And where does my opponent go from here? Do they just get fully countered down? It looks like that's what they're going to do. Yep, my opponent was scared to come back in with their Dugong, so they are just going to resign the match. Didn't even have to show them the Marowak, even though we're highlighting that in this game. Oh my god, terrible lead in the next match. 2 better answers in the back, safe switching into our Annihilate, and we lure out a Gallipod. Now this is good to lure out because Marowak doesn't want to see this either. I would argue Marowak wants to see this even less. So we're going to chip with a Rage Fist. That does some okay chip. And now I just let the Annihilate go. We've baited out an answer to Marowak. Hopefully they don't have 2. Obviously, if my opponent is team building correctly, they will. But I can just come in with my Ninetales. They are able to throw 4 fast moves and a charge move, which isn't supposed to be how it works. It means I did get 1 turn lag, but that's okay. In comes my Marowak, and this is where this thing is in its absolute element. You're going to see a water type lose to a ground type because it is the 2 shield scenario. All Marowak has to do in this matchup is basically mud slap farm them down. I can commit 2 shields in this matchup and come out loaded with energy. And because my opponent throws right away, that means I can fully farm down here without even throwing another charge move, which means not only do I beat the Feraligatr, I come out with back-to-back moves loaded. I know my opponent doesn't have much energy on the Registeel, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to overfarm slightly here, go for a second Bone Club after grabbing that shield, and this will do some solid chip. But then I'm going to make an interesting play. I'm going to switch into my Ninetales, and why? Registeel has no fast move pressure, so they're stuck in this matchup going for lock-ons. They have to throw in order to pick up the knockout, or else they're going to get charmed down, and that's exactly what happens. So my opponent will go down there, and we are able to take the win. Yeah, so that is a fast move damage team if you're looking for really quick sets and quick wins. The team does balance itself out pretty well in like most scenarios. Obviously, if you're seeing loads of Talonflames at your elo, do not run this team. Obviously, Jumpluff in the back is absolutely horrible as well, but that's why you have a safe swap. If you are going to run this team, I do recommend running Ice Punch over Close Combat on the Annihilate. I was just completely out of TMs after the Rocket event. I do recommend Psyshock over Dazzling Gleam on Ninetales because it gives you faster coverage if you're going to run Charm. If you're running Powder Snow, you could run it too because Psyshock's a great move this season. So, and then Marowak, your 2-shield beast. This thing is just the GOAT. I mean, it literally is. It's so good. I'm so glad I was finally able to build one after the Rocket event. But that's going to be it for me from this video. You can see it was a short video because of how fast we were able to get these wins. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Oh my goodness. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.